Today, we're tackling a massive question. How do you build a genuinely sustainable future for a megacity like Delhi? Well, guess what? A blueprint for a greener city is already out there, and we're about to walk through it step by step. So let's just dive right in. I want you to imagine you're the architect here. You've got the plot of land, the budget's been signed off on. But this project, it's got to be about more than just some flashy glass and steel, right? It's about creating something that works with its environment, not against it. That's the real challenge we're unpacking today. Okay, so where do you even start? You start with the foundation. But no, I'm not talking about concrete. I'm talking about the design itself. Long before you even think about installing a single solar panel or plugging in a smart sensor, the most important decisions have already been made. And this, right here, this hits on such a common misunderstanding. We tend to think a smart building is just loaded with tech and apps. But real intelligence, it's invisible. It's effortless. It's not about gadgets, it's about smart architecture. This is what we call passive design, and it's basically the building's built-in IQ. So how does that actually work on the ground? Well, first, you orient the building so its longest sides aren't getting blasted by the harshest sun, kind of like turning your back to a really strong wind. Then you design the building's shape, with overhangs and recessed windows, so it literally shades itself. And in dense areas, like the DDA hub at Karkaduma, you can even cluster buildings so they shade each other. It's brilliantly simple, super effective, and guess what? It adds zero to the construction cost. Now, all this clever design is really fighting against one specific villain, the heat island effect. This is what makes big cities like Delhi feel like an absolute furnace in the summer. All that concrete and asphalt, it just soaks up the sun's heat all day and then radiates it back out, cranking up the temperature for everyone. And your first line of defense against that heat is the building's skin, its walls. So instead of using standard brick, architects are turning to high-performance materials like autoclaved aerated concrete or AAC blocks. The best way to think about it is like concrete filled with millions of tiny sealed air pockets. It basically acts like a giant thermos, keeping the heat out and the cool air in, which means you need way less air conditioning. Okay, so the building's skeleton is smart. Got it. Now let's look at its lifeblood, the power and the water that have to flow through it every single day. So here's something you have to understand. These green utilities, they aren't just nice suggestions. In Delhi, they are the law. The Delhi Development Authority actually mandates solar panels on any plot that's bigger than 500 square meters. And for any plot over 100 square meters, rainwater harvesting is an absolute must to help recharge the city's dwindling groundwater levels. And speaking of water, it's important to remember that not all wastewater is created equal. We need to talk about greywater. This is all that gently used water from our showers, our sinks, our washing machines. I mean, sure, you wouldn't want to drink it, but just flushing it all down the drain is a massive waste of a really valuable resource. And you know what? This exact same principle applies to solid waste. DDHA projects now demand what's called a waste-to-wealth cycle. All the organic waste, think food scraps, is collected right there on site. It's processed in a composter, and then it's reused for the building's own landscaping. It's a perfect little closed loop. You're literally turning garbage into gardens. All right, so we've covered the building's shape and its systems. Now let's get into its body, the actual materials it's made from, and its brain, the technology that helps it think. Okay, this next concept is absolutely critical. It's called embodied carbon. We're always talking about the energy a building uses while it's running, right? But embodied carbon is the massive carbon footprint that's generated before the lights are even turned on. It's the sum of everything from mining the iron and firing the bricks to trucking it all to the construction site. So that brings every architect to a major fork in the road. You can build brand new, which, as we just saw, has a huge embodied carbon footprint, or you can choose adaptive reuse, taking an old structure and giving it a new life. When you do that, you preserve all the energy and carbon that was already spent to create it, and you slash your construction waste. It is the ultimate form of recycling. Okay, look at this number, 30%. Let that sink in for a second. So what's that 30% all about? Well, this is where the building's brain really kicks in. By creating a digital twin, which is basically a perfect virtual model of the building, and then letting an AI manage it, you can optimize things like heating, cooling, and lighting in real time. This isn't the passive design we talked about earlier. This is active, intelligent management that can slice a building's energy use by nearly a third. So you've designed it smart, you've powered it smart, and you've built it smart. But how do you actually prove it to the world? Well, that's where you get your final report card. You see, in India, there isn't just one green stamp. There are three main systems you'll see. There's GRHI, which is the homegrown national standard, really tailored for the Indian climate. Then you have IGBC, which takes a bit of a wider, more holistic view. And of course, there's LEED, which is the big international gold standard that a lot of multinational companies look for. Each one helps verify a building's green cred in a slightly different way. All right, we have covered a ton of ground. Think you've got a handle on it? Let's do a little pop quiz to find out. Time for the final exam. Okay, first question. In Delhi, policy allows developers to build much bigger buildings near transit hubs. It's called a higher floor area ratio, or FAR. But to get the absolute maximum allowance, what does the city require them to do? Is it A, B, C, or D? And the answer is B. They have to reserve a huge chunk of the building for affordable housing. And this is so fascinating because it tells you that for Delhi, true sustainability isn't just about eco-friendly materials, it's also about social equity. The policy literally ties development potential to helping solve the city's housing crisis. All right, one final question. Let's circle back to one of the most powerful strategies we discussed, adaptive reuse. Why is it considered such a top-tier sustainable strategy? What's its single biggest benefit? And you got it, it's B. It's because it preserves the building's embodied carbon. By reusing a structure, you're not just saving new materials, you're honoring all the energy and carbon that was spent decades ago to create it in the first place. You're preserving both its history and its original carbon footprint. So there it is, the blueprint for greener Delhi. It's clear, it's logical, and it's already happening. The real question this leaves us with is this. Will this kind of smart thinking stay in a special little box called green building, or will it just become building? The only way we build anything at all? That's the real challenge ahead.